Okay, here we are in the middle of the night as usual, finally getting around to doing a little video. What we want to show you now is a video of the BC-5 roasting 200 grams of coffee, which is roughly 7 ounces. This is something we've never been able to do before on the old BC-5s, but with the addition of the new manual dial damper, we're able to control the airflow a lot more precisely, and with the proper low heat on the burners, even though there's 8 burners on it, we're going to show you that we in fact can do a 10, 12, 14 minute roast if we want to with 200 grams, maybe even less. So let's get started. Unfortunately, my studio light went out, and so I'm just going with a lens that's set at 2.0 if you're familiar with photography, and shooting under natural light, which is really bad in our shop. But anyway, what I'm doing right now is I'm preheating the roaster. Going back to the lens for a second, because I am using this, it's actually a 35 millimeter 1.2 or 1.4, I think 1.4. I'm not able to get a full shot of the roaster, so you bear with me. But I wanted to tell you a couple things. We're preheating the roaster. We're going to go ahead and preheat it up to 350, and I've got the airflow set at 20% right now. So what you probably can't see it, but what we got here is 346 on the bean temperature and 332 on the airflow. I'm going to go ahead and reset my timer. I'm going to kick this down because I'm doing such a small roast. I'm going to kick this down to a half kPa. I'm using propane. And I reset the timer. If you were using natural gas, it would probably be set to closer to 0. And I'm going to show you in a minute how low the flame is, because that's probably what you're going to be focusing on if you're using natural gas. I'm going to try to get this in focus here, but it's really hard with shooting through glass. But as you can see, the burners are really turned down low. Alright, probably you can't see this very well because I can't seem to get the camera to focus, but the rate of rise is way too fast, which I didn't have this problem yesterday, but I think it's because I'm fooling with the camera so much. One thing you can do when the rate of rise starts going really fast and you're really roasting on a low amount, first of all, you can turn the kPa down, which is what I did. But notice when I turned the airflow up, I went from 2 to now 6. And you can watch the airflow running through the drum is actually cooling, slowly cooling the drum. And so what this is doing is slowing down the rate of rise. You don't want it to go in reverse, but you do want to slow it down if at 3.5 minutes you're all the way up to 307 degrees, because I like to keep my drying phase to about 5 to 7 minutes. So we're going to try to bring this up to 335 over the next, at least over the next minute. But I did get the momentum going too fast, partly because I had preheated the roaster beforehand to like 430 degrees, and then when I went to preheat it again, when I turned this on, I actually it heated up so really fast because the metals were really hot. So as you can see, it is slowed down. I wish I could get this in focus better for you. Let me turn it off and turn it on and see if I can. Well, I'm afraid I'm not going to be able to get the camera set up right in this low light. I actually would be better off shooting with an iPhone. It seems to do a better job at keying in. But that's partly because I'm using a fast lens with a real narrow field of depth of field. But anyway, I'll narrate to you since we can't. I actually slowed down the roast so much, it was getting so much momentum that it had gone up to about 305 in 3.5 minutes. By cutting the gas back so low and shooting the airflow up, I've actually only risen the bean temperature to 309 at 6.5 minutes. So obviously I've slowed it down more than I should, So there's a couple ways to increase that. Obviously increasing the gas pressure, and I'm bumping it up to 3/4 kPa. That should be enough to get it going so that by 7 minutes, in this case it might even go 7.5 minutes, it'll bump up to 335. Well, it's going so fast right now that it probably will hit 335 at close to 7 minutes or a little bit after. What I'm going to do though now is focus your attention where I actually have some light, and that's on the beans. Okay, I don't know how well you're going to be able to see this, but I'll narrate for you. Because I didn't do any adjustments on the drum or the airflow, we're just now hitting 335 degrees at 7 minutes 57 seconds, which is a little longer than I tend to go, but what it does show you is that you have massive control, if you're not fooling around with the camera, with the speed or the rate of rise on the roast. So here we are now, just now, at 338 degrees on the bean temperature, and it's going into the browning phase. And because I really don't want it to keep going this slow, I'm actually going to bump down the airflow right now to 4. And what you're going to see if you were to watch this screen over here, which is hard to do in this dark of light, you're going to see that rate of rise is really picking up. So the hot air in the drum is picking up. It's at 355. It's picking up a couple degrees every couple seconds. The bean temperature was just a minute ago was at slightly over 335. It's now at 355. So you got this nice rate of rise. We're into 9 minutes 10 seconds on the roast. It's actually going to be a fairly slow roast because I was fooling around too much with the camera and not paying attention to the roast. But here we are now, 360 degrees, 924 seconds on the bean, 372 on the environmental. So we should be starting to go into first crack in just a moment or so. And this is with 7 ounces or 200 grams of coffee. And so it shows you, and our KPA is set using a propane tank, is set at about 3/4. The airflow right now is slightly under 4. What I could do if I wanted that rate of rise or that momentum to pick up is I could do 2 things. I could increase the gas pressure, which I'm not going to do because I like the way that it's going. I can actually decrease the airflow, which means it's going to slow down pulling cooler air in from the bottom, and it should increase the rate of rise. Another thing that can be done, and that some people do at this point, is bump up the drum speed, which should bump up the momentum, and it looks like it has bumped it up. We're now at 10 minutes 36 seconds, 379 degrees, and I hear the beginnings of first crack. What we've got in here is, I wanted to do a really fragile coffee, one that's easy to mess up, to show you that it can be done. What we've got in here is an Ethiopian Yirgacheffe, where you've got the beans that aren't all the same size, and so there's potential there for mess up. Because I wanted to show you that if you can do it on a delicate roast like Ethiopian Yirgacheffe and get it right with 200 grams or 7 ounces, then you could really do good with pretty much any other bean. So we're at 392 degrees on the bean, 410 at 11 minutes 26 seconds. My airflow is set at 2 2/3, and unfortunately I got a bug here in the shop buzzing around the light. So let's take a look. I normally bring this coffee up to about 410, 415. I'm going to go ahead and bump up the airflow because there's a little bit more smoke in here than what I want. My airflow is now at 4.5. The rate of rise is still going nicely. 404 degrees, 12 minutes, 10 seconds. I think I will take this up to 415 degrees and then drop it. So we're at 12 minutes, 20 seconds, 410 degrees. Our KPA is about 3/4. I did have it drop down to a half at one point, but by bumping up the airflow, I slowed the momentum down way too much. So here we are at 12 minutes, 38 seconds, 415 degrees. So 12 minutes, 45 seconds. I'm cutting off the gas, turning on the cooling, and dropping beans. And that's a whopping 200 grams of coffee. So if you need to do sample roasts, and most companies will send you 8-ounce samples, you have no problem at all doing 7 ounces or 200 grams in a BC-5, and I stretched that out to, I can't remember what the time was, somewhere around 13 minutes or close to 13 minutes, 12 and a half to 13 minutes. And it's a nice, even roast. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's Ethiopian Yirgacheffe, which, as most of you know, has a lot of uneven sized beans, but we don't have a problem with it at all.